biology class. Today we're going to be going over about half of chapter 28. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up to full screen mode. And this is just going to be like it is in class. I'm going to go through the slides and explain them as we go. Also, we are going to be doing a Zoom tomorrow, so we'll finish up chapter 28 next week. So let's get started. The way you should be kind of handling this and doing this is you should be going through these slides with me as you're watching this video. So if you want to print out the slides, which are located on Schoology, print them out, have them in front of you, flip through them, write notes on them as I'm going, you're more than welcome to. Or if you learn better by just watching this screen and listening to me as we go along, that's fine too. Maybe you're jotting down some notes in a notebook somewhere, that's fine. However you learn best, you guys know how you learn best. So let's get started. All right, this is the very beginning section for human biology, and this is talking about the 5 levels of organization. You are probably already familiar with these because you should have learned these in 7th grade life science class, but if not, here's a quick recap. All right, the smallest unit that we're talking here is cells. So there's specialized cells in your body. We talked about development from a zygote way back in the beginning of the year, but we said that organisms are all made up of cells and there's different types of cells. We've talked about this before. I think we've even had this picture before, but you've got red blood cells, you've got nerve cells. So here are your red blood cells, here are your nerve cells. They look very, very different, but they're both still cells, and your body has other different types of cells in it as well. Okay, now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into cells. So when zygotes first divide into embryonic stem cells, that's like the differentiation part, which we talked about differentiation a couple of months ago. Basically, there's 2 stages to cell differentiation. So I'm going to talk about the bullet point right here first. In differentiation, you have cells that are being told what to become. So some cells, as you can see here, will be bone cells, or skin cells, muscle cells, epithelial cells, sperm cells. These are just a list of a bunch of different types of cells that your body will make when it's a zygote. All right, this slide is talking about the function of cells together. So even though there's lots of different types of cells, they all function together. So our next step up from cells is tissues, and then you have organ systems, and then you have the whole organism. So we went from cells to tissues to organs to organ systems, and then the whole organism. That's the order from smallest to largest. So those are the 5 levels of organization we're talking about. If you want to label them or write them down, jot them down somewhere, that would be a good idea because you should know those in order from smallest to largest or largest to smallest, depending on what I ask you. All right, we already talked about this a little bit, but obviously specialized cells perform specific tasks. So if I go back real quick to the red blood cell and the nerve cell slide, you can see that they look very different. And remember, we talked about structure determines function. So red blood cells are shaped like this, so that way they can flow through your veins really easily. And then your nerve cells are shaped like this because we're going to talk about different things called axons and how thoughts process and neurons fire and travel along different parts of the axon, like on the arm. We'll talk about that all later on. But as you could see, that specialized cells perform specific tasks because structure determines function. All right, so this particular slide is talking about tissues in particular. And tissues are basically just similar cells that are working together for a common purpose. So for instance, your liver cells are all working together to perform functions that your liver performs. Epithelial cells, connective tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue, these are all just different examples of tissues. Now we're talking about organs, so the next step up, this is the 3rd one on the list. Organs are different tissues working together. And then organ systems, 4th one up, These are two or more organs working together, and then the whole organism is all organ systems working together. So as you can see, it kind of built on itself, all the way from little teeny tiny cells to the organism itself. In this particular diagram, it's showing you an example of just organs. So here are the lungs, and then you've got an organ system. So you've got the lungs, looks like you've got the trachea here, and then part of the esophagus and throat and nose area and mouth, which that would be considered an organ system, or the respiratory system. And then this is showing you the whole organism. So it fits into this, which fits into this. So it's going from smaller to larger again. Here are the 11 organ systems. I'm not going to read through all of these because you guys can do that, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence there. I know you can read, but I'm just going to go through the different systems real quick. So you've got the circulatory system. You guys, that one's probably the most common. You already know that. Digestive system, endocrine system. When I say most common, I just meant like everybody knows what the circulatory system is. That's what I meant by most common. Sorry if that was confusing. Then the digestive system, endocrine system, excretory system, immune system, integumentary system. This is like your hair, your skin, all of that, the outer layers of a person. Muscular system, nervous system, which includes your brain. A lot of people I've found leave that one out of the nervous system. They usually just say spinal cord and then your nerves, but the brain is included in the nervous system as well. And then you have the reproductive system. Oh, sorry. My disc is almost full. And then the respiratory system and the skeletal system. So kind of interestingly, I learned this in college. I don't remember if we learned this in high school. I don't think we did, but I remember learning it in college. So all of these systems work to maintain homeostasis in your body, and I know we talked about homeostasis before. The only one that doesn't is the reproductive system, which is kind of odd, but the reproductive system is actually not necessarily, I don't know how to word this. In college, our professor basically said that it's kind of like not good for your body, like when we're talking about how your systems all work together to help maintain homeostasis in your body, since your reproductive system doesn't help maintain homeostasis in your body, is actually not necessarily a good thing, like in quotes. I'm doing the little quote thing. I know you can't see me, but just ironically, it does not maintain homeostasis. But that's interesting because it's the only organ system that doesn't. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next one. So this will be 28.2. Now we're going to get into a little more detail about homeostasis. If you don't already know what homeostasis is, you might want to highlight this or jot it down, underline it, star it, something. But it's basically just your body trying to keep its internal environment stable. Also, side note, my dog was really antsy because he wanted to go outside, so I gave him a Kong filled with peanut butter. So if you hear him in the background, sorry about that. All right, conditions within the body must remain within a narrow range. So as you all know, humans have a pretty stable body temperature unless we have hypothermia or a fever, but our body tries to keep it at a stable temperature, usually around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Fun fact, dolphins' internal body temperature is also 98 degrees. This is getting to more of the mechanics of how your body maintains homeostasis. So if you look at this diagram here, you can see these are like little cutouts of your skin that goes down deep down to your sweat glands and where your hair follicle starts. So you see that little tiny like blue squiggly thing that goes all the way up to the outer part of the skin. That's a pore, and your sweat gland connects through a pore, so that way like when you sweat, you can actually like feel it or sometimes see your pores. opening up, or maybe you took a really hot steam shower or were in a sauna or the hot tub, you can actually sometimes see your larger pores that are open. In the next picture down of that little skin cutout, it's showing you the hair follicle muscle. And when you get like goosebumps or like the chills or whatever, your hairs will usually stand up on your arm or your legs or the back of your neck. And that is because you have a little muscle that's attached to the hair follicle that does that. So this would be considered like a sensor. So this sensor is gathering data, right? So your skin can tell when it's cold outside, and therefore goosebumps will happen, right? So the control center receives the data, it receives that temperature change, maybe it's cold, maybe it's hot, and then it sends a message. We'll learn about sending messages to the brain later on when we get to that part. But there's a communication system within your body that's going to deliver the message to all of the organs throughout your entire body, which is how your body knows how to respond to the environment. And then the last point there is just it targets the response to change. So whatever that response may be, in this case, let's say it's cold outside, like the example I used, and you get goosebumps, that's the response. Okay, we are actually going to stop here today. This is talking about the negative feedback loop, and this is actually something that I'm going to have you guys memorize. It's not that hard to memorize. It's a little bit of a complex concept, but I will be going over this in more detail next week. So we're actually going to stop here today. I'm just thinking, because we need to get through about a half of a chapter per week, which is actually less than what we were doing in class. So in class, we were actually quite a bit ahead of schedule, which is great because now we have a lot more time to work with. And I know this is the first week of official e-learning, so things are probably just hard to get used to right now, and you're still learning Schoology, and I know there's been a lot of technical glitches, but we're going to start out really slow, and we're only doing about a half a chapter a week, which means there's going to be a lot more like independent activities that you guys are going to be doing, like in the form of those worksheets. And also we'll be doing some virtual labs, meaning my husband and I are going to demonstrate the labs. If I need to recruit a partner, I'm just going to use him. And some labs I might be able to have you do at home. I'm kind of bummed though, because I was really hoping to do these labs with you guys in class because there's some pretty fun, cool ones. But I'll demonstrate them on video. It might be kind of comical when I recruit my husband. But we'll see how that goes. But like I said, we're only going through about a half a chapter a week, so not too much. Just make sure you stay on top of this. All right, that's it for biology class for today.